with Tania and Nette. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening. I'm Nette, and this is Tania.
Hello, welcome.
Today's topic is actually one that we promised we would do back in, I think it was our second podcast when we spoke about mediumship. So if anyone hasn't listened to that, you can go back and listen to that one as too. But we mentioned about ghosts, and Tania in particular said, no, I'm not going to talk about that now. We'll do that for a whole different podcast. So I'm excited to hear what Tania has to say, because I don't have this big thing about the word ghosts, but I think for you, Tania, is that right? This is a hot topic.
No, I wouldn't call it a hot topic, but you know what? First, Nette, in the podcast, I think before our last one, it was your wrist. You'd hurt yourself, and
yeah,
we didn't get the update on it.
Yeah, okay. So I had hurt myself the day before, I think. And Tania, when we came onto the podcast, she was like, I'm going to tune in. I said, I've hurt my hand. I didn't say anything more than that. And she said, I'm going to tune into it. And she was like, I think you've actually broken a little bone in your hand, and you're going to end up having to wear a bandage for a few weeks. So I'm going to go to a different medical medium next time, one that says that it's not a break, you don't have to do anything.
You're totally fine.
Because I then went to the doctors, and as soon as I walked in, she looked at it and she's like, look, it's presenting as a break, off to get an x-ray. So here I am with this stupid splint with a metal plate in it that I've got to wear for 4 weeks. So, okay, you were right. So don't go to the doctors. Don't worry about an x-ray or a CAT scan. Just give Tania a call.
Don't. I just, you know what? I like the validation because, I've been doing this for quite some time, and the validation, I still like it because it's like, okay, because sometimes when you do mediumship, you feel like you're making stuff up.
Yeah,
It's like, is that really real? And that actually is a good segue sort of into speaking about spirits and ghosts. So to me, the way it was explained to me is that they're two different things. Spirit is people that are on the other side, and ghosts are spirits that are stuck sort of on earth. So I had somebody sort of explain it to me that they had come across these spirits that just that were kind of stuck here and didn't know what they were doing, and so they created like this sort of round thing of light and encouraged this spirit to cross through to go over to the other side. And I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. And a week or so later, I was at Children's Hospital visiting one of my son's friends who was in the hospital. And all of a sudden I became aware of this little girl that was there. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, is this a ghost? Is she like stuck here? And, so I did my little like doorway of light and encouraged her to go through, and, reflecting on it, like knowing that this is what we were talking about, I was like, I swear to God, I made that up, because like, I don't actually believe at this point that like spirit knows what they're doing. I don't necessarily believe that we as humans have to step in and do these things for them in order for them to cross over. Like, they just know what they're doing. So she must have been like, okay, so this is what you want to do? All right, okay, thanks. I'll walk through this lovely golden door of light for you so that I can make your beliefs real for you. Honestly, because since then I've not encountered that. I've encountered people on earth, and I've encountered spirit, and that's it. I haven't encountered this like really confused spirit that doesn't know what they're doing. And I don't want to poo-poo on other people's experiences, because this is just my experience. And we've talked a lot about like perspective and beliefs. Like, if I believe that will be true for me, but it's just not true for me at this time. I think sometimes we as humans, we take a lot of stuff on, and we try to be important.
Yeah.
You know, but the reality is spirit knows what they're doing. There's this greater knowledge out there that knows exactly, we're the ones struggling, not them.
Yeah.
You know, they've got this perfect understanding of things. It's us. And I feel like and I don't want to say somebody that says that they've helped a ghost. I don't want to say it's BS, but I think that we take on a lot of things as humans to try to control and maneuver things almost in a way to make ourselves be valued, or I'm not sure how to explain that, but that's my personal experience. I don't see a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Now, and I now know why I called it a hot topic for you and not for me, is because, to be honest, I've put no thought into it. I saw spirits and ghosts as being the same thing. And so now I understand that you've had a conversation that you were, where someone's defining them as two different things. And so
Yes.
therefore you're going, I don't see them, I see them as the one. And so the interesting thing is, I was like, what do you mean? Ghosts and spirits are the same thing. So when you said, I don't know if I believe in ghosts, I think was the words from that podcast, I was like, well, you speak to them, so how could you not believe in them?
Right, because you define them as the same thing.
Yes, because for me they're one. And so yeah, that's kind of cool to now put my mind into one that I would say was more like on a different tangent to the others. So most spirits that come to me, they come with a message and a purpose. So I find that they come in and then I'm either told who they're for, or the next day someone will come and mention something that I'll go, oh, okay, I just spoke to this spirit, blah, 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 and he gave me these three things, and you've just mentioned them in a row, so now I know that that is for you, and I give the message and it's valid to them. So there's like a connection between a loved one on earth and it's interesting that we always say with spirit, you often hear a loved one, and I think that's because spirit comes with love. It's part of our last podcast, right? I just realized that. I love words, so when I heard that for the first time, that resonated to me, to say that all spirits do love. It's almost a validation of what we said last week, but sorry, I digress. But yeah, so I had an experience with my husband when we were in our 20s, and we were driving back from a party very late at night, and we were coming on this Port Arlington road. It's like this long road between two towns. And as we drove along, there was a car in front of us driving as well. And we could see a lady on the side of the road in typical what TV ghost, really. She had a nightcap on, a nightie. She looked like she was from the, early, or probably even earlier than the 20s. And she had a lantern, and she was swinging the lantern and frantically at the side of the road, like as if she was trying to pull the cars over. Now, it was only my husband and I in the car, and then there was people in the car in front of us. I don't know if they'd been to the same event as us. They probably had been, because it was a small town, but both cars pulled over. And interestingly, you could see this lady's face glowing. The lantern was to the side moving, and you could see light kind of going back and forth, but you could clearly see her face, and you could see the distress on her face. She was terrified. She was frantic. She was trying to get help. That was very clear. Anyway, when we stopped, she disappeared. There was nothing there. But we were basically on the side of the road with a paddock. It was a very dark night, so it was hard to see where you were. The car in front of us then just took off, and we took off. My husband and I said very little about that in the car. He was definitely an atheist, non-believer in anything, no such thing as spirits. He knew that I had, in fact, we'd been dating maybe 3 years, and he knew I was very intuitive, and he could agree with that, but he wasn't agreeing with the ghost thing. So now he's seen a ghost himself, and he's like, shit, if I just don't talk about it, it didn't happen. And then a couple of years later, we're at a party in Melbourne, and this someone brings up ghost stories, and everyone's around drinking, and this guy, this story, this really happened to me. And so she's like, I was driving along the road from Port Arlington to Geelong, and there was this lady on the side of the road with a lantern, sweet. And I'm like, what? I'm like, hold on. So I ran out the back and grabbed my husband, who was in the middle of a conversation, my boyfriend at the time. And I pulled him back and I said, all right, sit down here. Now listen to this. And so she's like looking at crazy. She's like, so I was driving along the road, and then this lady with the lantern, and my husband just looked at me and goes, no way. When was this? And she said, it was only a few months ago. And then we were like, that's amazing. She goes, no, let us finish. She said, and we found out that the lady's house burnt down on that farm, and her family died in the fire, but she didn't. And she went for help, and she couldn't get in there, and she ran for help. And at this stage, this road was a track, like when it happened, a really low track. And so they're like, oh my God. So now she haunts everyone there. And I'd never really thought about it again, as I saw her just as a spirit, like I see other spirits, but she did come with this frantic energy. And like racing through my mind now, I still can't put in place the purpose of that, like continuous by the sound. Like there's been, this girl was saying there's been many people have seen this ghost, or this spirit. And I don't know why she was there. I don't know what the purpose of me seeing her or these other people are seeing her. She doesn't fall in line with all the other spirits, the message that I was getting. So yeah, like I don't have answers. I just have questions now. I'm gonna have to go and think about this myself.
Let's unpack it a little bit.
Yeah.
So to me, that is essentially the epitome of a ghost. Is exactly like that's, there's so many wives' tales about that type of thing happening. Yeah. I personally have not had it happen. Just as we were sitting here, spirit, like I was kind of going, Kate, like spirit, like what is that? And they told me it was an energetic, they said energetic footprint. I had to look at my notes. An energetic footprint. So I'm just going to ask.
So I agree with that. My only theory that I can relate it to is I've come across what I call energetic hotspots. There's a spot where we walk on the beach, and we come back up on the path, and there's a tree just near it. And when we come under that, the friend that I'm with, when we're talking, we always get this weird feeling, and we get this kind of thing. And she's like, I think someone's following me. I think someone's looking at me. She always gets a bit weirded out when she's there. Move on. And she won't stop there. I have a little dog, so the dog stops everywhere and lives on every pole. And if he stops there, she won't stop with him. She'll keep going. And so like I feel like I'm getting that same sort of feeling, that it's something to do with a little energetic pocket or something where something has happened and the energy itself has not been able to clear in that area.
Yes. So I just tuned it just as you were talking. I'm kind of tuning in, and I'm like, hey, explain that. And they're basically saying that when something big, traumatic, and horrific happens, it can leave what they're calling an energetic footprint. So it's like, they're showing it like, this is a weird analogy, but this is the picture that they're showing me, is that there's a pillowcase, like a pillow, and then they put a pillowcase on top of it, but it's the pillow is the event, but the pillowcase is what stays. It's like almost like it lays over top of the event and just sits there. Does that make sense? Like that's how they're explaining it. And yeah. I realize it doesn't make sense. I'm asking if the way I'm explaining it makes
like
sense.
I'm trying to take in what you're saying. I can see that like I understand the contents is actually gone, the event's gone, the stuffing's gone, but there's still like a layer left, like the pillowcase.
That just almost sits there somehow energetically.
Yeah. And I think it relates back to the course that I did with Nancy Rebecca, and for a year, part of what we did, we cleared energy from stuck energy, she would call it. And I can see how that kind of could create a spot where this ghost, as we're saying it, could actually sit in. I agree with that. I just don't know why we're seeing a spirit in that space. Like, how does that energy then transform into this image, or that we're all identically seeing? Because when a medium gets the same message, my understanding is if 10 mediums were in the same room and got exactly the same message, it would come through in different pictures if you were seeing it visually, right? Because then it relates to that. But we are seeing the identical vision of something, these unrelated people with all different beings. So it's quite intriguing. It's like, it's curiosity, right? Again, and it's great. And I'm not going to go spend too much time on it, because I'm going to be satisfied with working that out over time, and I think the knowledge will come to us as we go as well. But I love that. I think what Spirit's giving you is exactly right. It's a footprint of energy that can be released, and that course with Nancy, when we were releasing energy, it would be interesting to go back to that place and actually see if you can actually release that energy. And maybe that's getting back to what they were talking about with that little girl, right? Maybe there was a tragedy that happened in that space, and whether it's lots of children dying or things like that, that there is an energy held there, that what the interpretation of ghosts from those other people is not putting the actual spirit back through the hole, but is to release that, like a little mouse, is to release the pillowcase, like get rid of the pillowcase, that energy pocket that is still there is being able to do that. So somehow it's kind of been interpreted through time or through dialogue, and maybe even through people that don't see anything or don't understand it, that they've put words to it to try and grasp it, that it's actually a soul that's stuck there that's can't get out.
Well, but that's really reasonable.
Yeah.
Because this spirit is let's call it a spirit for this conversation. This spirit isn't presenting how spirit presents. Spirit would not present in that frantic, scared sort of way. Spirit tends, like in my experience, they present very lovingly. So to actually physically see that person, that's a pretty decent, that's not a far leap, to say that this is a ghost. But the part that I can't wrap my head around, or spirit is also not allowing me to, is that it's somehow this soul like didn't know what they were doing, so they're still here. Because they are so much smarter and they have it all figured out. Like, we don't need to interfere. So, but I don't think it's a far leap at all to see something like that and to call it a ghost. I just don't think logistically that's actually what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a definition that we're then playing with of what it is. And maybe my brain's going into the, as you sit with yourself and hear your messages come in, that it's, sorry, I'm just trying to word it all together properly, but it's saying that the reason it's presenting in as that woman all the time is not because that woman is stuck there. But
it's because
and we're all seeing the exact same image, because what we're seeing is the emotion of fear that as humans we all can relate to. We're getting the story of the energy that's stuck there, and this girl with the lantern is showing us, the lady with the lantern is showing us that energy, and we all, as I recall now, when we were talking about it with this girl who had seen it only a couple of months ago, my husband and I, we had the same level of emotion from seeing that. So it's energetically delivering the exact message that it's trying to deliver, as you probably saw when you saw this little girl, like in the hospital. A certain level of energy or thing came across to you in that moment. So maybe they're presenting like a precise message of what energy is stuck there.
I see what you're saying.
in giving that same image, we're all getting the same answer, if that makes sense, or the same feeling of the energy that is stuck in that space. And yeah, and so can you clear them then? Can you clear that energy?
But why?
I don't know. Well, if it's there, if it's something like on the path where I walk all the time from the beach, and you get this energy that everyone's getting and walking through, do you want to clear that space? If that was in your house, if someone bought that farm and had that energy outside where the power is connected and the plumbing, and you want to put your house there, do you want that energy sitting outside your house? Do you want that, interestingly, that house has never been built there, so that maybe people come there and there's an energy like, oh, this doesn't
and they're
feel
like,
right.
no.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that would be creepy. Like, that's the type of thing that would honestly, like, and I mean, you and I have been connected to spirit for a long time. I would see that and I'd be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, that's creepy.
Yeah, it was very unlike other spirits that I've seen, because normally when a spirit comes through, and because I've seen them since I was little, I was just like, oh yeah, that's cool. And I probably was less worried about it because of that, but it was still felt wrong. It still felt like I remembered her pain for so long. Like, I remembered that emotion of, I like when they told me what had happened, that was like, yeah, I get that, because I could feel that desperation of loss and all that sort of stuff. So it was kind of like, cool, like, that 100% makes sense. But yeah, I never correlated into that being a ghost and everything else I see being a spirit. It's all the same to me, but maybe there is a difference. Maybe stuck energy is a ghost, rather than a spirit.
So, with my definition of my understanding of what a ghost is, which is basically like a stuck spirit, how does that resonate with you? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I've only had this 15 minutes to think about it, but like what's coming to me is that idea of stuff. We all are energy anyway, so spirit is an energy. They're just explaining. So I get that. So what defines energy and not energy is interesting, but I don't think there's a soul attached to it. So
thank you. Yes, I think that's a very good differentiation.
Yeah. And so when we have a soul coming through with a message or a voice, compared to this vision, I think this is a vision of energy that is put in a way that we can relate to it, rather than a soul coming through with a message. Yeah, I'm actually happy with that. Like that balance.
I'm satisfied.
Really well.
I'm satisfied with that as well. As soon as you said it's not a soul, but it's almost just like, again, like an energetic footprint with a visual, because that's essentially what happened. That caused that energetic footprint was this poor gal on the side of the road trying to save her family. That makes sense. But to me, I've never understood that a ghost is a soul.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think when they say ghost in that thing, it's not a soul. And so now when people say ghost, I'm going to look at it in a whole different light.
Yeah,
because
there you go.
It's funny too, because I have some spirits that come back. I've spoken, I think, in the past about Singing Boy, and I'll message my husband about Singing Boy as if he's someone I know. So it's quite interesting, because I seem to relate to people on a soul level on earth, and so when I relate to these people, they don't differentiate between like they have the same sort of relationship in my life in some ways as what another soul will. Obviously there's touch, feel, all those things that come into people's thing, but I still feel that equal connection with these people, that I like them, or I don't, that I feel comforted when they come in, and when they bring their voices, I'm happy to hear from them, that sort of stuff. So, and I didn't have that emotion at all with this ghost. So I think we've hit the nail on the head with there. We might have just come out with a
I
and
think
you
we've just
learning.
solved the world's problems, really.
Yeah, that's it.
Because spirit just will not let me say that a soul doesn't know what they're doing. Like, that's just, it's almost like in our 3D language, it's insulting.
Yeah,
Like, we, and I've said this before, like, for somebody in their human form to think that they have to help spirit, it's like, no, I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing. Or like, balancing our chakras and oh, I need to do this so that all my stars align and everything works out fine for me. It's like, it doesn't work like that. We're not working to have this like spiritual enlightenment in these moments where we're we're interdependent with spirit, and they can't handle it without us. I mean, come on.
yeah.
Like,
I
there's
think
no
sometimes
humility in that.
I think sometimes we're racing to the finish line without enjoying the race. It's
Yeah.
like
And that's why I say we are not human beings striving for a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Our spirit already knows what it's doing. It's
yeah.
us in, this meat locker that we walk around in that's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I was watching a movie the other night and that line came up in it and I thought of you. I was like, oh, Tanya says that too. It was really funny. And Andy's looked at me and go, what? I go, oh, don't worry.
The meat locker?
No, spiritual people in, we're spiritual people having we're human people having a spiritual, no, the other way around.
Yeah. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. But I think ego comes into it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
That,
absolutely.
I have to do this to, help spirit along or help move energy. And it's like, we can work well interdependently, of course, like you and I talk a lot about, our human mixed with our spirit, but they're the all-knowing, not us.
Yeah, interesting you say that, the alignment of spirit. And it's funny because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I understand why they do this. I don't listen to many podcasts, but I should. But when I hear people talking, they'll often say, oh, spirit said this, or I'm channeling this or that sort of stuff. And my girlfriend was saying to me, listening to our podcast, she said, you and Tanya don't say that very often. Are you not talking to spirit or not channeling? And I had to laugh because I was like, oh, we don't really. Like, we've said it a few times, but it's not our language. And I said, I spend most of my time in line with my spirit, so that when I'm talking, some of those things are coming in as a discussion through spirit, and some of them are coming through just in my general
your
thinking.
Logical mind.
And so we blend them so well that we're not going, spirit said this, da 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 da. We can stop and pause and listen to spirit. And sometimes, especially when we're together, spirit's like having a field day. Yes. I mean, you listen to our first few podcasts, and we've got this high energy and we actually interrupt each other quite a bit, which we've discussed offline. And one of the reasons it is because we're connecting spiritually as well as we're connecting physically. And so we're hearing what each other's saying early. We're getting all these, stuff fast. And our spirits were coming in. They were excited that they'd finally paired us up. And it was like blah 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 blah. And we're working really hard to make sure that we pause so that you can understand at the pace that we should be talking at, rather than a muddled and not missing the bits that spirit is saying. And we're actually trying to pause and let you know that what the message spirit's delivering as well. So you may hear that more from us now, but it wasn't to say we haven't done it from the start. We do that.
I think that's a really important point, because I 100% do that. I sit here and I take notes, because spirit will pipe in and they'll be like, boom, with a thought, talk about this. And I have to write it down, because otherwise I will interrupt and be like, oh. And I do try to say, like, when I said the energetic footprint, that did not come from my own brain. That was definitely spirit, right? So I try to give credit where credit is due. But I agree in that it's so interconnected that it all just comes in. I can tell the difference between my logical brain and spirit. And in fact, sometimes I'll be like, I'll have an idea and it will immediately leave my head. And I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that. And then spirit will like throw in sort of what I'm supposed to talk about. But I think it would get annoying if the entire time I was like, oh, and spirit said, oh, and so said, and just assume, listeners, that it's a combination of the two. Like if I say I feel, or spirit says, or I'm being shown, that's spirit. If I say I think, that's me.
Yeah. And I find that when you have that lovely harmony and balance in your life with spirit and with yourself, you will, it just flows, and it gets you know, that in between where you can't tell the difference between it. So it's a nice place to be. We're probably time's up. Yeah, by the look of that. Tanya's giving me the watch symbol. I'm like, oh, we've actually got about 3 or 4 minutes to go. So yeah.
Oh, do we really? You were timing?
Yeah.
Nicely done, because usually I do the timing and I forgot, and I was like, this feels like,
yeah, where are we at?
Good job, Nettie.
I did press it a bit late, but I did less timing. So yeah, but we're nearly time's up for the day. So but I've enjoyed it. It started with ghosts and end up with almost spirits and being aligned with yourself. It doesn't know where are we going. But I think the punchline of the day, right, is that a ghost, if we want to call it that, is not soul. A spirit is soul. So
yes, exactly. And spirit is basically calling it an energetic footprint. I had to look at my notes. Energetic footprint.
Yeah, love it. All right. Thank you for listening, everyone. And
thank you. I hope we solved your dying questions about ghosts versus spirit. Please come back. We love having you here. Without you, we are nothing. Thank you so much.